Hello there, Monica. Can you see me, hear me?
Hello.
Hi.
Yes.
Hi. How are you?
I
That was
have
a
kind of
quick.
a poor connection today, so I might have to turn my camera off.
Okay,
But we'll see. How are
we'll
you?
see. Hopefully, we'll stay. I don't know who's going to come. Nobody responded to my email, so I'm not sure who we will have today or not have. But I quick got on my laptop so I can walk around. We can go into the studio if we need to, or like I've got down here a whole bunch of
Ooh,
pieces from the so far. That's actually all of them, I think, so far. And then there's a
wow.
couple in the works. Yeah. So,
Very
um,
cool.
how has following along been so far for you?
It's something that I really look forward to. Usually I try to save it for like when I wake up in the morning.
Hmm.
So, gives me something nice to kind of like start my day instead of other things that I may be looking at.
Yeah, that's great. And since it's just us right now, I'm gonna move the view. There we go. That's a little better. Um, so I'm curious if you have any questions so far about the residency.
I've just been liking what I've really liked so far is seeing like how you prep something and
Mm.
seeing how, because to me when I've seen a finished piece or maybe like I've seen the maybe like a time lapse of in process, which really see like this is prep. I'm just gonna let this kind of like marinate and then to really kind of see how it unfolds has been super interesting. Like I really love the pieces with the gray that you're like, I'm prepping these. I thought that was a really cool insight into the process.
Yeah, and that's been a little bit of a new learning process for me. So, um, one of the artists, the abstract artists that I love, there's a technique that I've been trying to figure out how she does. I don't feel like I can ask her how she does it. I'm like, oh man, she got that hard one over years, I'm sure. Some of these abstract techniques are I like you figure them out kind of as you go, right?
Yeah,
But so I was like, how does she get such a light sheen? I'm pretty sure it's acrylic, but like, how does she do it? And so, and I don't like my canvas to just be bare canvas. Like, I feel like there's a very unrefined look if you just like throw some paint on a canvas and then like you can still see the canvas behind it. It feels like cheap to me a little bit. Like the artist is afraid to like take up space, I don't know, or use money or I don't quite know, but it's got a feeling for me that I don't love. And so I've started just doing a very sheen layer of like that beige white. It's like beige and I who knew I would love beige so much? It's literally called beige. And I feel like I mean that's what's on this and I feel like that looks white, right? Like I mean it
yeah,
doesn't compare to like white, but it looks white when it's on its own. And but it's enough color to not be like feel empty. So I let
yeah.
that dry, mostly dry. And then I take I've been taking very watered down acrylic and like
Hmm.
trying to like it's almost like I'm trying to mimic like a watercolor blot.
I thought it was watercolor.
Oh.
So that's really cool too. So it's and I really liked getting to see like the tools and how you use the tools. So it's just the other thing that's been really interesting for me. I was really wondering, like, because I feel like you have such a very clear use of color. Like your use of color seems very intentional. With all of your pieces, it's very harmonious. And I was like, what is this color palette going to be? So
Mm.
that has also been really interesting to see how that unfolds.
Yeah. And that's more into like that's a hard one for me to do because I'm like it just is super intuitive to me of like I've been paying a lot more attention to just colors that I like that go together
Yep.
and trying to figure out what it is that I like about them. But I don't know that I'm consciously thinking about that. Like when I started this piece, the only things that I knew that I knew I wanted that really light black back there. I don't know, you can
Hmm.
barely even see it now. And I knew
Yeah,
I
it's
wanted
cool.
the light pink. And I figured and I didn't know where it would go after that. But then like I just was like, well, what if I added some gold? I feel like this needs some gold. And then the gold came in. And then um like I will tell you the one thing that I didn't know I was going to do is I knew I was going to do those scribbles. Like
Hmm.
that was in my head that was absolutely I didn't know where they were going to go, but I was going to scribble all over it. And I was kind of looking at abstract artists whose scribbles I like, and I realized that you need to get some uncomfortable colors in, even if it's a really pretty thing. Like you almost need like something that's going to cause tension a little bit.
Hmm.
And so I'm playing with like what's the thing that's going to cause the tension. So I felt like I started with some pink lines, and then that matched, of course, the pink, but I I eventually brought in like the black and there's like a reddish and just the black and the reddish oil pastel felt like it was adding the tension like outside the color palette, but just enough
Yeah.
tension. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing too that I really like is how, thinking about light, and we kind of always think of it as like something visual that we're seeing or maybe like a feeling, but the scribbles to me really kind of take me to the place of thinking as like light as energy.
Like the
So
vibration of it.
yeah, so that to me, or even if you just think of like, how like a physicist would like read light in different wavelengths, and so that was really cool to kind of see that too. I was
Mhm.
like, oh, that's interesting that that kind of sparked that for me.
I'm glad you brought that up. And anytime anything like that sparks for you, please share it because I don't know that that's what I'm thinking about, but I feel like for me, what makes this a residency is hearing from you guys of like of trying to get the new ideas into the thing that maybe would come from being in a different space. But since I'm in my own space, I'm like trying to figure out how to create like those ideas. But I love that idea of the wavelengths of light. Um,
Yeah, I'll have to drop that in the Telegram. This last week has just been was really hard. I'm in a much better place now, but I was like, this is not the time where I need to be like dumping this on anybody
totally
other
get
than my
it.
therapist.
I totally get it. The tension of this piece, like I was super nervous about that one. Um,
Yeah,
because I like it's not like pretty. You know what I mean? Like I feel like the one behind me is pretty, and this feels so messy yet cohesive now. Like it does feel like it can't like I like where it ended up, but I was really nervous to add in that lime green, but trying to find, I don't know, I don't even know if I should say this out loud, but sometimes I'm drawn to like the Lisa Frank colors of the 90s.
yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of what ended up happening there. But I feel nervous to say that because I don't want people to be like, oh, that's a 90s piece. I don't want necessarily that to be what it's known for. And those Lisa Frank colors are very co like they're bold but cohesive.
There, this actually, I'll have to maybe like pop a picture of like some of her paintings or pottery. She mostly paints pottery, but there's a woman that I've been following now for like probably 20 years, and she used to be a like professional knitwear designer for like yarn companies,
Mhm.
and her use of color is like personally to me, I'm like, I would never put those colors together, but it's so interesting. It's so cohesive. And there really is that kind of like vibration and tension
Mhm.
in how she puts things together too. And her style is like very folk arty.
Mhm.
But just the play, to me, the play of the colors is very interesting. And I would say that that piece to me, I don't really think, could you show it again?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't, to me, it doesn't read as messy. I think it reads as very cohesive. It has a very nice composition. It has flow. It has form. It has color that works together with that little bit of tension.
Mhm.
Um, and I feel like I'm gonna have to like kind of noodle a little bit more too on like the thought of like light and tension and how
Mm.
maybe like shining a light on something that might be uncomfortable causes tension and how do
Mm.
you work through that, you know? So that's another interesting thought.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, this doesn't exactly relate to that, but my favorite part of this piece is I don't, let's see how close I can get. So, can you see these scribbles right here?
I love that.
Okay, so that was the shadow coming in from the window. I made sure I like scribbled along that like line
Super cool.
when I was doing that.
Yeah.
So it it kind of brought that together in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I really love that.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't get to acknowledge her before she left. Hopefully she'll
Oh,
come back. Um, so yeah, that was a really fun piece of it for sure. That like
can I ask, is this the first time that you've started incorporating oil pastels? Is that new?
I played with it once before and I did not like how it turned out when I did it, but
Mm.
I just was like, well, I'm gonna try it again. Um, I am slightly nervous to make the mixed media piece of things in that way because I'm worried about like it rubbing off or smearing. Um, so I'm gonna have to find a like a spray to go over it, and that
Yeah,
also
like a
nervous.
yeah, like a fixative.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the one that we would use. I mean, honestly, like the cheapest, the easiest one we always would use when we did charcoal stuff, because and charcoal has a little bit more delicate texture than the oil pastel. Um, Aquanet.
Oh, interesting. Would that affect whatever it was on? Like, would
No,
it? No.
you had to be patient and like do a very like big kind of gent. You couldn't like hold it super close, and you know it had to be more of like a fine mist, and you might need to go over it like 2 or 3 times, let it dry.
Yeah. Mm.
Do a test first.
Yeah, I will. I will do a test first. Yeah. That's a great idea.
But yeah, it's a really cool use of that. And because I was kind of wondering too, like with the scribbles, I was like, how do you get something like that defined? Like, so that was also interesting to see.
What do you mean by that defined?
You know, like if I something that has more of like if I were doing it with a paintbrush, you know, like it'd probably be kind of sloppy or like it'd be a little blobby in parts. Whereas like these are very like distinct, clear, defined lines.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and I like how that also plays with the kind of organic, flowing, like almost nebulous
Mm-hmm.
quality of the acrylic. So again,
Yeah.
and that's another way that kind of creates that tension.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that.
Yeah. Trying to like okay. This piece, I don't know if I like it or not, but it's interesting when you're like, okay, I made it. I don't know if I like it or not. But this one right here,
Hmm.
it's like the colors are not harmonious to me. Like something about it doesn't work, but also something does work, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. And so I think it definitely fits in the collection because it feels like I definitely feel a heavy and darkness around this and just, frankly, it's just feeling all the feels about what's happening politically is what's coming out in this. And it's
Yeah,
that non-harmony. And it's interesting to see that play out on the canvas of even though you're not directly thinking about that, that's what's back there and it still finds its way to come out.
I
Um,
feel like that piece has the most, like to me, it evokes the most sense of like unease.
yeah, yes, unease. That's exactly the word on that one.
Yeah, like it really makes me feel uneasy.
Yeah, I'm like,
And yeah, that's where we're at these days. I
yeah.
mean, wow.
And I would say that's really yeah, what I was feeling when I was making that. And it's just really bizarre to me of how strongly emotions can come through in abstract when you're working. If you if you try to take the thinking out of it. So holding this idea of a residency and so having that idea of and this theme and holding that in the back of your mind, but when you're working on the pieces, like you also have to, for me, I have to let go of any conscious thought of what I want it to be,
Hmm.
which is weird.
Yeah, how do you kind of disconnect from that as you're in the process? Do you just kind of like get in the flow and let things happen?
Like getting in process, like, well,
Yeah.
it's a good time to go into my studio for a second. Like, uh, we're taking a little trip.
Yay.
Through my very okay. So I am these you probably saw in the group earlier. So
Hmm.
this was all about trying to I was doing my backdrop of the beige color and then I was like, well, I wonder like the gold even when I add a lot of water, gives this very sparkly sheen to it.
Hmm.
And I was like, I wonder if that sheen will come through if I add it to the beige concoction. And
Hmm.
that's more of what this one is over here. But it
Nice.
didn't quite like it didn't it was like just being so in process that you follow the what ifs instead of thinking too strongly about them, right?
Mm, I like
Like
that.
if I had thought too much about it, I would have stopped myself from doing it. But it was allowing myself to feel into the curiosity of what I was doing was super important to me. And I'm really like, this might be done.
Hmm.
That I may just leave as is because I'm really digging how that turned out. We'll see. Like I had planned to do a lot more light colors over top of that, but I don't know. There's just some really cool like I don't know if you like
Hmm.
how cool that is. I mean, I don't know if I'm getting the angle right, but I'm just like, oh my gosh, that is so neat. And all of that is accident, like all of that is just allowing it to be in process. And so the way to answer the question originally is like, it's almost like what we were talking about in vision to action today of like the building confidence through action. If I
Hmm.
just start the process, then I know I can trust that something will come if I keep taking action.
Hmm.
And then find like there's so much tension in creating art of like following the curiosity and knowing when to stop following the curiosity. Like so you don't take it too far. Sometimes I take it too far. Like that one piece, that last piece that looked like the unease, that
Hmm.
I took it too far, right? Like I got right up to it and then just it went over the line.
But it's cool to see that happen because I think that's also something that in this very intensely intentionally curated world you don't always see.
Right, right. Which is the value of like getting behind the scenes and but also it makes it really I want to leave that piece in the body of work because of what it represents, you know?
Totally,
Uh,
totally.
and I really thought that I was going to be doing a lot of stuff that looked more like this little guy.
Hmm.
And the original piece, like the first piece in the collection, like that piece, I thought stuff was going to look more like that. But the more I try to control an idea,
Uh-huh.
uh, the, yeah, like it's not good. And I had a lot of, when I make art for me, and I think I said this in the Telegram channel, when I just make art for me, I can bust out a lot of art.
Hmm.
But there was something about saying, I'm doing this residency. I want to have a collection come out of this that, like, right in the beginning, I kind of froze a little bit of like, oh, this isn't just for me. There's like that pressure to perform
Uh-huh.
piece of things. It definitely made me freeze a little bit, and I had to fall back on the no, that like you have something to say, you know how to make art. Um, but I don't know, I confront fear every time I go to a canvas of like that fear of making ugly things
Hmm.
or messing it up.
Uh-huh.
And like, but having to just like do it anyway. Like I know it's so cliche. We hear it all the time of like, feel the fear and do it anyway. But like that's really what I feel like I have to do of like there's always a moment where I'm like, ooh, this might not work out. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't work out. But I like it sometimes I, I have to let it not stop me.
Hmm. Oh, that's a big life lesson right there.
I think you know a little bit about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Probably more than a little.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious if you have any more questions. I know I'm just like talking.
No, this has been super interesting. Can I see the piece that's at the bottom, behind your left elbow?
This one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really like that one.
I do too. I really, really like this one too. I think you probably saw there's that picture of like a sunset, and that this like these were like trees and I don't know, I just tried to mix those colors and then I felt like I got there, but I'm like, okay, now what am I gonna do to make it mine?
Hmm.
And putting in the sun with the gold leaf was really fun. I really like gold leaf. I don't feel like I have a great command over making it do what I want it to do yet.
Interesting.
Um,
I would not have known that if you had not said that.
yeah. So like I wanted a fully like filled in sun. I think it actually works better not being fully filled in, but what I was going for and what I got are just like it's super interesting of like the image in your head of like what you're trying to create versus what
Hmm.
you get is pretty different. And then once I put the sealer on, and you can see in some of the past pictures, you could see like I just put the sealer over the gold and you could in light you could see the sealer and so I had to go over and take the sealer kind of over everything to make it
Hmm.
look not like it stood out, right? So that was something with this one. But there are little gold flecks kind of like everywhere in it. I let the
Yeah,
come down everywhere, and that was really fun. Um,
I love that.
yeah.
Um, I had one other reflection on the uneasy piece.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So it's really interesting because my first kind of thoughts were the part in the on the right side with the straight lines makes me think kind of like a weather vane. And then with the spirals, it makes me think of like the it's spinning out of control, or like your compass is broken, or like in Alice in Wonderland, when the rabbit's watch explodes, like it gives that's kind of where my mind goes, which adds to that whole like uneasiness and
Yeah.
tension. So just a reflection on that. That's kind
Oh,
of where my mind went with that.
it does look like a weather vane. That's, yeah. I like that reflection. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, we've lost the way.
More ways than one, we have lost the way. Yeah.
That's what that one's giving me. So
Okay. I love it. Um, well, any other questions or thoughts before I?
no, this was a super fun reflection, and I really enjoy talking about art and what it brings up for different people and like motivation behind it. So thank you.
Well, I'm so glad you were here, and it's so helpful to have questions and hear what people are thinking and reflections. So thank you so much for coming. I'm probably going to send this recording out to all the patrons. I might even pop it in our Telegram channel, but thank you so much.
But yeah, I'll pop a couple more things in there too now that I'm in a good space to be a mindful contributor.
Well, thank you, Monica, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bonsoir.
Bonsoir.